Welcome to Tapped In. My name is David Figueroa-Martinez of DFM Coaching, and today we're going to be discussing positional breakdown or playbook, specifically on the bridge. And when I decided to do this episode or this topic, I kind of thought it's going to be way too basic and one of those things that just people might not feel like they're going to get a whole lot of it. My issue is I have found that people do not bridge effectively. We all have our own tendencies. Sometimes we have limited movement because maybe we have an issue with lower back or neck or whatever our bodies are going to limit us to doing. And then we're going to do bridging differently based on maybe how it was taught to us and what we are in the applications in which we're using it. It's really easy to think that we have basic movements down. And then when you look at yourself in a role, like a recording of a role, you start saying, okay, maybe I'm not doing that quite effectively. Just recently, I did like a week or two of escapes. And again, I felt much like these guys have been training a while. They should know how to escape. They escape every day. And when we got down to do the drills and I showed it, and I was very specific on the kind of bridging and how I bridged. And they were doing something slightly different. They weren't bridging as high, or the feet weren't as close, or they weren't bridging to an angle enough. And it was creating unrealistic responses in the escape. So if I bridge half, like just a weak bridge, if we do that during drilling, the other person kind of moves because it's a drill. It's static. And then I get the escape and I think that I'm doing things right. So what I ended up doing was like, I want the top person to actually put some weight down. Put not your entire thing, don't go 100%, but put enough weight down that the bottom person has to bridge effectively in order to buy themselves enough time to either get the underhook or get the legs back into play and regard. It is surprising how much we all kind of mess up the basic shit, me included. So I'm not trying to erase myself from this and make it about everyone else. We generally have this habit of, we think that we know all the basics, so then we start advancing to other things. And yes, our game probably flourishes, but there's a lot of stuff in that fundamental stage and elements that we don't normally have to do all the time. So maybe we either get into bad habits or we just ignore them because we don't find ourselves in that position. So this is that type of an episode. So if I'm going to define the concept of a bridge, it is less about explosion, even though that's a big element depending on what we're doing. And it is more about redirecting, timing, and connectivity. The combination of like the hip thrust, slight shoulder rotation towards your opponent, the spine alignment that you're in, that will create enough energy to move your opponent off of your chest or off of your rib cage, depending on how high or low they are. And it'll give you the space and the reactions that you need in order to escape. A good bridge doesn't just move the hips. It really moves the entire upper body. So if I have them on my right side, they have head control, hip control, head and arm, some variation of that. And both of their knees are on my right side. One's at my hip and one's probably under my shoulder line. If I bridge powerfully straight up towards my head, I do not get the extension that I need, and it doesn't really move them. Moving towards the head doesn't do anything in most cases. Sometimes in mount, it gets you at least moving the body, but from side control, it doesn't do as much. My goal is to bridge towards the right. So the science behind it is, if they are on my right side, I have my left arm under the chin, hand maybe on the shoulder, inside shoulder, outside shoulder, depending on how long my limb is. And then my right is pinned against the inside of their hip. My hand is kind of on the outside. He or she is not allowing my legs to come in back into play. My left foot has to be the driving foot. Yes, we're going to bridge off of both, but the left one is the most important. When I bring my feet in, because they have to be as close to my butt as possible, and I get some people have knee issues and they don't quite get that close. But the further out my heels are and my feet are from my butt, the weaker that bridge is going to be. Specifically, if I'm smaller and the other person's bigger, even more so. If that size difference is the other way around, I can get away with certain things if I'm the bigger athlete and they're smaller. When I bridge, I'm not going straight up towards my head. I'm leaning into them. So my left foot becomes the grounding force and the force that's gonna support the entire structure. My right shoulder is going to be the other opposing structure point in my body. So again, left foot is going to be what's really going to be carrying most of my weight and doing most of the driving. My right shoulder is what I'm going to be leaning on. When I bridge, I'm leaning and my hips are driving forward and I'm leaning towards my opponent onto my right shoulder. At the highest point of the bridge, I push with my left elbow forearm to get just a few more inches of extension depending on who I'm going against and how heavy they are. It's the make or break of the situation sometimes. My right hand is posting on the hips so that they don't keep driving forward. Once I reach my apex, now I hold both hands in place. I don't extend my arms. I do not want to create any extension in my arms. If we're fresh, doable. When we're tired and our muscles are achy and they're exhausted from a 5.5 minute round and I still have time to go on this, or we are not playing to a time limit, my arms are not going to be able to withstand that weight. So I have to use the structure of my arms instead of the musculature. Once I hold, I hip escape, and it's going to be a giant entry level for my right knee and shin to drop through. So I shove those through, I start to push away, and we can go to half guard, we can go to reverse de la Riva if they stand, we can go to close guard. Any of those that you like, you can go right into submission attacks and sweep attacks. You don't have to wait till you get all the way into something and say, okay, I've solidified this position. Now I can attack. You can attack in that middle zone as well. That kinetic energy that you're creating is what's really going to move them. If you do not drive well enough or at an angle well enough, they're not going to move. If most of the shifting or the weight that I create in the bridge is more towards my head, they're not going to move. So I really have to aim everything towards them. My belt knot almost faces their belt knot when I'm at the apex of that bridge. And then I use the structure of my hands to be able to move. If we're in mount, sometimes I will bridge towards the head. It's a different thought process in that position because maybe they're going for control of the head or they're going for control of a wrist or a collar. Every once in a while, I might bridge upward. When I bridge upwards, there's that like where people post both of the hands on the hips, on their opponent's hips, and then they kind of kip up and they start straight arming their arms and then they bring both legs through for butterfly. That's an escape. That happens if you bridge hard enough upward so the weight comes off. My preferred method is to do very similar to what I do in side control, which is bridge off to the right. My body, when I'm in mount, is usually structured in a way where it's leaning to the right. I'm on my right hip. My left hip is a little up. It may not be completely sideways, but it's just a little up enough to withstand the weight. My left arm is on the hip, guarding against him coming too far up on the chest. And then my right forearm is tucked underneath my rib cage so I can hold and create a gap between their leg and my ribs. So when I bridge to the right, again, it's the same motion that I'm doing of that giant bridge from side control off to the right, and then framing, hip escaping like we did from side control, getting the legs in and going to the guard of my choice or closed guard or butterfly, completely up to you. But that bridge has to be strong and angled to that side, more so than if I'm like, there's no half for me. I have to really give it some oomph, but I have to take them to the right side. The other aspect of this is when I'm in there, let's say, it doesn't really matter. Let's say I'm in mount again. When they start to go for something, sometimes I'm not ready to escape. Maybe I understand that their hips are too heavy. Maybe I understand that maybe my hands are slightly out of position. So then I use the bridge as a stopping point to make them adjust or pay attention to something. So when I feel their hands maybe going for a wrist, for like Americana, or they're going for head and arm control, or they're trying to bring their arm under my head, neck, or they're going to the collar, I bridge in the direction where the arm is coming from. And it's not a big explosive bridge. It's a bridge that keeps them honest and off balance just enough that they have to readjust. So if their right arm is going into my collar, I immediately bridge to the left. But it has to be powerful enough that they have to stop what they're doing and then post on the mat. And the same goes for if they're going for my wrist trying to Americana. Maybe they're trying to Americana my right hand. I have to bridge to my right to force them to post their hands on the mat. If the bridge is strong enough and they don't post, we're rolling over. But chances are with higher level people, they're not going to lose the balance. So I just need to keep them busy enough so that they don't advance further in this predicament of mine, that they are busy with having to maintain their balance, and then maybe they make a mistake. When I'm in bottom of side, similar things. Let's say start going for Americana. Okay, so I might bridge slightly to the left just to keep them a little off balance and then tuck that arm back in. Another venue or avenue where I use this is the in-between stage. If I have an opponent on side control on my right and they want to go to mount, I wait till I can feel their hip side knee, in this case their right knee, go over my hip and then start to drag across my waist. I will bring my hip side hands, the side is closest to the hip, down to their knee, block their knee by putting my elbow in front of their knee next to the mat. If I don't do that and I bridge, they slide out, get a wider base, and then come back onto me. And then I can prevent that slide and bridge into it as they're trying to transition the mount. I can topple them over and come all the way up. Another one I like to do is if they are, let's say in mount, trying to go to S. That movement sometimes gives me a little bit of a advantage in hip escaping or bridging and then hip escaping and getting out of danger. Find those moments that are in between a solidified position and the next transition that they're going to. And the bridge is going to act more powerful because it's coming at the perfect time. When you're trying to go to a new position, oftentimes you're leaving a little bit of an escape window. It may not be huge, and depending on how experienced the other person is, it might be a second. But you're going to have to anticipate where that second is and then bridge, hip escape, or bridge, roll. So it's going to be that timing of the bridge is super important, specifically if you catch them just off balance enough and then you're gone. Again, the body positioning, anytime I'm bridging to the right, my left foot is the one that's going to be carrying or being most explosive or creating most of the energy going in that route. Keep all your hands in, your elbows in tight. Only use them when you need to for the bridge. If you're in mount, brace against the hips. Don't keep your hands outside of the vehicle, as one of my instructors once told me. We're not meant to wrap around unless this is self-defense or MMA. If it's straight jiu-jitsu, I want elbows, hands on the inside. And then I want to use my frames on the elbows and forearms to guide them when we start to bridge. So places that I find this best, again, are going to be mount escapes, side control escapes. Sometimes in that in-between where they're starting to pass, like if they're passing knee cut to side control, that's a beautiful time for a bridge there. It's one of the most useful moments because it's that in-between stage where they haven't solidified anything. And because they haven't solidified anything, I still have a window to play with. And then their balance isn't completely on board yet. It's still kind of formulating. That's when you can hit the button and go. So again, common mistakes that I often see is bridges are kind of weak, half-assed. People will bridge, instead of bridging close to 90, 100%, they're bridging like 40% and wondering why they can't move anyone. The other, they have the frames they have the arms on the outside and not acting like frames to the inside. Sometimes their feet are too wide apart or too far away. You need your feet just close enough that there's a base, but close to your butt and hips so that you can really get extension on the bridge. And then the other thing I see is timing, not timing the bridge correctly. If I mistime a bridge, I'm wasting energy. And yes, early on, you're going to have to mistime a bunch of these to kind of figure out where the perfect timing is. But then you're going to start to feel it and you won't even have to think about it. And you're just going to push and you're just going to go. And your job is just to understand that these moments are fleeting and I have to take advantage of them. I'm hoping this helps in discussing how the bridge works, how to best use it to your advantage. I am a huge advocate of using the bridge to off balance and using it in really key moments. And it's almost like sometimes a get out of jail free card. We're not overusing it. We know exactly when to use it so we don't use up all our energy. And when you can do that, you become really hard to hold down and you get really hard to submit. I have a couple of trading partners who get really tight with their elbows and hands and then just have this beautiful ability to just hit you with it's almost like a jab, just a slight hip extension and you're just off balance just enough that they rotate underneath you or they turn or they turtle up. It's a beautiful thing. If you have any questions or you're struggling with this, please let me know. You can hit me up at dfm.2099 on Instagram and Threads. I also have a free school community, DFM Coaching BJJ. You can look it up or the link is in the show notes. Again, completely free. Until next time, thank you so much.